Okay, I think we are live. Hello, everybody. Just wait 30 more seconds and allow people to come through. We've got 25, 26, so that people are still coming in. Good to see everybody. I can't actually see anybody, but it's good to have you all with us this morning. Very cold morning. That's 1 minute gone. So we'll kick off. So hello and thanks for joining. This is we were just talking a couple of minutes ago. I think this is the probably the most interest we've had in any subject in our world of technology over the last 10 years. Perhaps with the one exception of sort of cloud, when cloud was a new thing. So it's great to see so many people really interested in this. I think there has been a bit of a real buzz around AI but quite a lot of mystique about it when it first came out, and there was lots of marketing and all these promises of what AI can do for you. And I think it's taken a while. So we ran a webinar, a very similar webinar to this some months ago, and the number of attendees we've got this time around with us is more than doubled. So we're sort of trying to weigh up why that is, and one of the conclusions is that actually now my impression is that people like yourselves have started using these tools and have started to kind of, okay, actually I can see some use in this, and perhaps now really starting to think, yes, there's some real we could get some real traction with this within our businesses. So great to have everyone here. Just by way of introduction, so I know many of you, and I think many of you will know me. If you don't, so I'm Jude. I'm the commercial director at Resolve. I've been at Resolve and in the IT industry for nearly 16 years, and spent the last 2 years increasingly more of my time in sort of talking through to customers' AI journey, the various phases of implementation and that kind of thing. Also with us, we've got Hannah. So Hannah's our brand and communications manager at Resolve. Again, you'll probably recognize Hannah's face. Hannah's been with Resolve a long time. Hannah's responsible for really getting the sort of Resolve Copilot message out to the world and organising events, excellent events such as these. And then our main speaker for today, so Ed Dale. So Ed is, this is not the first event that Ed has ran with us. We keep getting Ed back. Ed's got 20 years experience in training. Ed's a fantastic speaker, and I think one of the reasons, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Ed, one of the reasons we keep getting Ed back is Ed's ability to present complex ideas in really simple terms is excellent, and matches Resolve's kind of ethos as well, which is great. So yeah, Ed's going to cover the majority of the subject today, and I'll let Ed sort of introduce what that's going to be. Just before I hand over, so there is a Q&A. Fire your questions in there if you have them. We'll do our best to answer them. Broadly speaking, the objective is to give you a very high level of overview, overview of Copilot. What we're assuming is no knowledge. So, but I think the chances are by now most of you have probably already started to use some AI tools in your business and possibly personal lives. And so ready for the next stage, which might be implementation of Microsoft's Copilot into your business processes and start to take advantage of all these kind of promises around efficiency, savings, and that kind of thing. Final thing from me, in the new year, Resolve will be hosting a series of workshops, both in person and digitally, with sort of guided training on using Copilot, aimed at various stages of your journey. So if you've got licenses and you're wanting to make better use of them, or if you haven't implemented at all. Some of these will be hands-on, so hands-on sessions where we can get together in a group and start to train your staff on how to implement and use these tools. So we'll keep you posted on that. Just keep an eye out in the usual channels from Hannah and the team on when to expect those. I'll stop talking. That's enough from me. So and hand over to Ed for the main section.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jude. And thank you everyone for giving up some of your valuable time to come and join us, as Jude said, on this very cold morning. It suddenly became winter, didn't it? It just suddenly, I don't remember an in-between. It just suddenly went really cold. But Thank you for braving it and joining us this morning. So we have quite a bit to cover in the time that we have together today. As Jude mentioned, this is more of an introduction to Microsoft 365 Copilot, really around, its value, really what it can do for you as an organization and some of the benefits. This is the stuff that we are going to run through in today's session, having a quick introduction into Copilot. Also, looking at the opportunity that AI presents to organizations like yours, as well as looking at the different Copilot options. That's right, different Copilot options, because there is more than one Copilot. I know we say Copilot as a catch-all term, but believe it or not, there is actually a load of different Copilots focused on different things. Today's session is Copilot for Microsoft 365. So the Copilot that is designed to work with your M365 applications, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, Teams, that sort of thing. But there are Copilots for different things. For any of you that maybe use the Power Platform, things such as Power BI, for example. Maybe there's some of you here that use Dynamics Business Central. Well, there's a Copilot for that. So we're going to have just a quick run through of the different Copilot options that are out there. We're also going to look at how you can actually use M365 Copilot, what you can actually do within things such as Word and PowerPoint, as well as looking at some of the personas. There are lots of different people in your organization, all of which have their different roles and responsibility. So we'll look at how Copilot can potentially help different people within your organization get their work done more efficiently and effectively be more productive. We'll also touch on some considerations as well. I'll touch more on this when we get there, but effectively this is talking about making sure that your environment, your business is ready for Copilot, making sure your M365 licenses are all enabled with features and functionality that help with things such as security, identity, access. Hopefully many of you have got all this stuff already, but again, Resolve can help you get to where you need to be in order to deploy Copilot organization wide. So that is our agenda for today, but it's an exciting agenda because we have an exciting future ahead of us. AI, it really is, the topic of conversation and has been, let's be honest, for the last couple of years. We've seen AI tools cropping up absolutely everywhere in our personal lives and in the organizational applications that we use. Now, Microsoft is a spearhead in the AI movement, but with Copilot, it isn't Microsoft's first foray into digital assistants, because that's what Copilot is. It is a digital assistant that is designed to help you get more done, to help you be more efficient in the work that you do. And this isn't something that is new to Microsoft. For example, some of you might remember this guy, and some of you may even remember his name. His name was Clippy. He made his appearance all the way back in Microsoft Office 97. So there you go. If you remember that, then you're as officially as old as I am. And this statement here, Copilot, I am your father, yeah, that's kind of true, because for those of you that remember Clippy, if you opened up a Word document, he would just pop up, go, oh, it looks like you're making a Word document or an Excel or something. Can I help? For those of you who remember, he was loved by some, hated by most, but Clippy's job was to help you get more done. And that's the same job as Copilot. M365 Copilot is there to improve your efficiencies, to make you more productive as an individual and as an organization. But one of the big differences between M365 Copilot and Clippy is AI. Everything that we're doing within Copilot is generative AI, and AI, as I mentioned, is really transformed the way that we work. It sounds like a grandiose statement, but I would say that the dawn of AI in the workplace is as big as when the internet came along. But that's kind of the shift that we're actually seeing at the moment. But we are moving out of the information age. We are moving out of the information age and we are moving into the intelligence age. That is the shift that we are seeing at the moment. But what does this mean for organizations and businesses like yours? Well, the question I would ask is, well, what do you think fuels most organizations, whether they be SMB or enterprise? Well, I'd argue that most organizations all want the same thing. Every organization wants a business where employees are more engaged with the work that they're doing, where teams are more productive, where an organization is more resilient. And resilient to what? Well, could be resilience to change, for example. We live in an era of very fast-paced changes. And again, we saw that 5 years ago with the COVID pandemic, where everyone suddenly had to go from working in an office to working remote. And that in itself has brought a lot of change. So resilience is absolutely key. So every organization wants the same thing, but that doesn't mean there aren't challenges. We have seen in a recent work trend index that 64% of people struggle to find the time or the energy to be able to get their work done. And we see a lot of this, especially now with, hybrid working and everything else. A lot of people, because they can work from home on any device, any location, some people are burning the candle at both ends. They're working all day, they're working all night. A lot of people are starting to burn out. They just don't have the time to get everything done. 70% of people then also say that if they had an AI tool that could help lessen their workload, could take some of that burden, 70% of people say that they would use that tool all of the time. Now, some of you may be able to relate to this. Some of you may find yourselves doing an entire day. Then once you've had your dinner, the laptop's coming back out so you can finish that document. You can finish replying to those emails. You can finish that PowerPoint presentation, whatever it might be. But if you are finding that that is potentially a world that you're living in, then maybe Copilot is something that could help, because there is a very human factor to this conversation. We're going to talk about a lot of very cool technology, but at the end of the day, it comes back to this very kind of human sense of making sure that people can do their best work, that people aren't burning out, that people can still have, that balance. A happy worker is a good worker. So again, being able to balance that with tools like Copilot is absolutely crucial. And, generative technology, things such as AI, for example, has been one of the fastest growing technologies we've ever seen, compared to some technologies that we just absolutely take for granted nowadays. Mobile phones, the internet, Facebook, as an example of a fast growing technology. ChatGPT beat all of that in 3 months. So that really kind of gives you the view of how widely adopted and the global curiosity that surrounds AI. But I do have to address there are some concerns. Of course, there are people out there that are concerned that AI is going to replace people, that effectively by buying these technologies, effectively what we're doing is ensuring that tomorrow we're going to be out the job. Well, I'm not here to speak about the wider AI message. I'm here to speak about Copilot. And Copilot isn't something that is going to do anyone out of the job, I don't think. With 49% of people concerned about this, let me just kind of allay some of those fears, especially when speaking about Copilot. Because Copilot is a tool. It is a tool that is designed to help people who are already good at their jobs be better at their jobs. I mean, you imagine a tool, just like any other tool. Think of a hammer and chisel. You give a hammer and a chisel to somebody unskilled, untrained, and ask them to make you a sculpture. They'll probably hack away and make an absolute mess of it. You give that same hammer and chisel to a trained artist, a sculptor, and they'll create you a beautiful work of art. Now, what changed in that scenario? The tool was the same. It was exactly the same tool. The thing that changed was the person using the tool. And that's exactly what it is with Copilot. The person using the tool matters. You can't just buy Copilot and expect it to do everything, because Copilot is there and it will change the way that we work, but it is still your work. Like I said, the fundamental goals of Copilot are to help save time and energy, being able to get more done, and maybe generate new ideas. So these are the crux of what Copilot is about. And this drive, this change that we're seeing is also going into hardware as well. You may have seen these new Copilot Plus PCs hitting the scene. These are devices, again, designed to enhance AI experiences. These devices are selling like absolute hotcakes at the moment. So even hardware and device manufacturers are now building devices that are designed to enhance these Copilot experiences. And when I said there's different versions of Copilot available, this is what I meant. So at the moment, and this slide is wildly outdated. And again, I apologize for that, but it's almost impossible to keep up with the amount of new Copilots. And like I said, this is a market which is changing so fast that it's so difficult to keep up with. But today we are talking about this bit, just that bit. So you've got all of these different Copilots, within the stack. Like I say, Copilot's designed around, business intelligence and analytics. We've got Copilots around things such as, CRM systems, for example. We've got Copilots that are built around security or cloud. So it doesn't matter what the workload in your organization is. There is most likely a Copilot that is designed to help fit your needs. So that's the great news. And if you want to know more about any of these other Copilots, because like I said, today we're literally just talking about this bit. If you do want to know any more about these other Copilots, do reach out to the fantastic team at Resolve. They will be able to help. So let's talk about some of the Copilot options that are available. So these are some of the Copilots, which some of you may have seen, some of you may have heard of. There is this one here, which is Copilot, simply just called Copilot. Now, this is a consumer grade. This is the customer version of Copilot. This is like the Copilot that you would have if you've got like consumer home licenses, for example. So that's not really what we're going to be talking about today. But these Copilots here are designed to function very much in the same way as things like ChatGPT, for example. And I'm sure a lot of you on here are already utilizing ChatGPT in some shape or form, whether some of you are using it for work purposes or maybe you just use it in your personal lives. But I'll touch more on that in just a second, because what I did want to mention is that you have all got access to this, which is called Copilot Chat. Now, pretty much everyone on here probably has a commercial M365 license. That is things such as M365, business standard, business premium, E3, E5. If you have one of those M365 licenses, you get included for free Copilot Chat. And effectively, Copilot Chat is a tool that you can utilize very much in the same way that you would use ChatGPT. But some of you might think, well, why not just use ChatGPT? Well, let me just explain very quickly the difference between M365 Copilot and ChatGPT. First of all, if you are using ChatGPT, the consumer-based version, i.e. you're not paying for a license for ChatGPT and you're using it for work purposes, then I do urge a little bit of caution, only because with ChatGPT, if you are using a consumer version and you're using it for work purposes, ChatGPT does use all the information you give it to train its AI model. So anything you put into ChatGPT effectively gets saved and utilized by the AI model. And we have seen some organizations come unstuck doing this. A little while ago, some engineers at Samsung were working on their next generation of semiconductor technology, highly classified work. One of the engineers had a bright idea. Why not take all of our research and bung it into ChatGPT and see what ChatGPT can come up with? Maybe it will come up with some ideas that we haven't thought of. And everyone said, yeah, what a great idea. And that's exactly what they did. What they didn't realize at the time was the second they did this, all of that confidential data that they just uploaded is now effectively public. Anyone else now who goes onto ChatGPT and asks questions about semiconductors or anything like that, ChatGPT will probably be referencing the confidential data that was given to it by those engineers at Samsung. So that's absolutely something to bear in mind. In fact, I've already seen some organizations start to block ChatGPT in their corporate web filters because they are worried about customer information being utilized on the application and then being used to train the AI model. That in itself is a breach of GDPR. So there are some serious consequences when it comes to things such as this. Now, that free version of Copilot Chat that you get for absolutely free if you've already got a commercial license. First of all, everything that you do remains within your M365 tenancy. Microsoft does not use any information given to it and share it and use it to train its AI model effectively. That means that you can use Copilot Chat and the full fat M365 Copilot in absolute confidence that all of your data is secure. And we've got some of the world's most hyper security conscious organizations already using Microsoft Copilot for those very reasons. We've got legal customers, we've got government and defense customers that are using elements of these, again, because it meets those high standards of security and compliance. So Copilot Chat is absolutely something I would recommend. If you haven't started using it already, you can find it by going to m365copilot.com, and from there, again, you can just use it like, a chat tool. But the cool thing about Copilot Chat, because it's secure to your organization, you can provide it with corporate information. You can drag documents and stuff into it and ask it to analyze or rewrite. You can ask it to compare documents, all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with Copilot Chat, and it's absolutely free to get started with. Obviously, it does have some limitations. M365 Copilot goes a lot further, and we'll discuss that in just a moment, but this is a great way for anyone who's still relatively new to AI or just new to Copilot to dip their toes in the water and see what's going on, but definitely worth checking out. Now, how does M365 Copilot work? Well, M365 Copilot is made up of three core components. The first one is something called an LLM, a large language model. For those of you that have already used Copilot or you've used ChatGPT, you'll be familiar with what an LLM is. It is that creative engine that can read and understand human natural language and provide answers in natural human language. Now, that LLM then ties into something which is called the Microsoft Graph. Now, what is that? Well, the Microsoft Graph is just a very fancy way of saying your data. All of your information, your emails, your Teams chats, your stuff in SharePoint, OneDrive, all of that sort of stuff. That is what makes up your Microsoft Graph. Now, it's a very interesting point to mention that with the Microsoft Graph and with Copilot accessing your data, Copilot can only see data that you already had access to, because Copilot does not circumvent any additional policies that have already been put in place. And this is a very important point to mention, because Copilot itself doesn't really come with any security controls. And that might sound weird. You might think, what? No security? Well, no, not really. Because Copilot will respect what security your organization already has in place. Copilot will respect the policies of what is already there. So this is a very important point for any of you that are considering deploying Copilot in the not too distant future, because Copilot effectively has access to data within your organization SharePoint. It will only give access to the people that already have access. Now, I know some of you here, and I know there'll be a couple of people, because it always happens, because it gets away from us. There are SharePoint environments, some SharePoint sites where everyone's got access to everything. How many of you on this call have completely locked down your SharePoint? You've gone through the entire file structure to make sure, right, only the finance team have access to this, only the marketing team have access to this, only the sales team have access to this. How many of you on this call, your SharePoint is a bit of a free-for-all? And don't feel bad if you are, because don't worry, you are in the majority if that's the case. But if your SharePoint environment is like this, that means that Copilot could give information or data to somebody who is unauthorized. Imagine I work at your organization and I type in, hey, how much does the managing director get paid every single month? If I've got access to the folder that contains all the pay slips, Copilot's going to check, hey, does Ed have access to see this stuff? He does. Brilliant. Here you go, Ed. Here's the managing director's last pay slip. And that's bad. You know, I really should not be seeing data like that. And there's lots of information within a company, you know, that people shouldn't be seeing, you know, confidential, highly regulated stuff, you know. So this is why it's absolutely imperative that during your Copilot deployment, you are working with Resolve to make sure that things such as identities, access, governance, policies within things such as your SharePoint file structure is addressed, to make sure that oversharing and data leakage does not become a concern. So really, really important point there. So to sum that up, Copilot does not share any of your data with Microsoft to train its AI model. Copilot inherits the security policies and identity and governance policies that your organization already has, and to increase your chances of having a smooth Copilot deployment using the expertise from Resolve. So that Microsoft Graph, that then ties into your M365 applications. So specifically in this case, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. So, oh, there you go. There's my summary there. Your data is your data. It's not used to train AI models. Everything is protected at every step by Microsoft. Oh, and here's an interesting one as well. Microsoft will defend you with their customer copyright commitment. I know there's a lot of worry, you know, with AI generated content when it comes to copyright infringement or plagiarism or anything like that. In a nutshell example, if you were to use Copilot to create something and somebody then turns around and goes, hey, you basically just copied my thing, and they try to sue you for copyright infringement, provided you can prove to Microsoft, which they can easily check, prove to Microsoft that you did not ask Copilot to reference the works of Shakespeare, or you didn't ask Copilot to copy the Coca-Cola label logo. As long as you can prove you didn't set Copilot off to do this, Microsoft will actually offer legal assistance as well. So they will actually defend you if something like that were to come up. So let's jump into some of the use cases, again, utilizing and how we can actually benefit from the features and functionality of M365 Copilot across our applications. Now, whilst we are going through this, I would like you to think about the different people that work in your organization, because I'm sure, you know, the people who are here, you are here pretty much as a representative of your organization. Some of you are maybe going to have to go back and maybe justify this to maybe stakeholders within the business. So I want you to think about how Copilot, M365 Copilot, can impact different people in your organization. Now, not everyone's got all of these departments in their business, but I do want you to think about how it could help across these different areas, because that is always, you know, that question, you know, with Copilot is, you know, where do I start? How do I get started with Copilot? Well, it starts off by thinking about those different people in your organization, thinking about what do they do day to day. So, what do the people in the sales department do every day? What does the marketing department do every day? I'll let you make your own jokes about that. But effectively, it's all about looking at where the value lies. I'm going to show you some cool stuff that you can do with Copilot, but I want you to think about how you could bring this into your organization, where the value is. You know your business is far better than I do. Of course you do. So I want you to think about how you could put that value into your business as we go through. So let's start off with one of the first ones, which is Copilot in Word, for example, utilizing Copilot in Microsoft Word. Now, I don't know how many of you here have to very often write, like lengthy proposals or contracts or something like that. This is something that I have to write proposals quite a lot of the time. And I can tell you that when it's a proposal for a lengthy, maybe adoption program that we're doing, it can be, long work. I'm talking, hours worth of work. So one of the really cool things we can do with Copilot in Microsoft Word is we can ask it to reference different things. So for example, we can see here that I'm asking Copilot to create a proposal for my customer, and I want it to base it on the meeting notes that I took yesterday. Maybe I recorded the meeting in Teams and I've got a copy of the meeting notes. So I want it to use that as the reference point. So I'm going to ask it to use yesterday's meeting notes, and I'm also going to ask it to include details from our company's product roadmap. So maybe all of our products and pricing and everything else. What Copilot will do is it will take all the information from the meeting notes and the product roadmap and use that to build my proposal. So I asked Copilot to do three things: build me a proposal, use this document for the context, and use this document for offers and pricing and everything else. So what would have been maybe, let's say, 2 hours worth of work, combing through the meeting notes, combing through the product offers, what could have been 2 hours worth of work is now done in about 30 seconds. So, that is a significant time saving. I am now already 2 hours ahead in my day. What could you do with an extra 2 hours in your day? And think about the people in your business that do have to often write lengthy proposals or contracts. Think about people in HR when they've got to compose, like job offers for different departments. They've got to reference different parts from the company's clauses and contracts and bring all that down into a single document. Think how much time that could save them. But is AI I said 30 seconds like I'm finished. You're not. AI content is very rarely perfect on the first pass. It is imperative that you read through this stuff. You've got to make sure that it's correct. Comb through it, make sure it's pulled the right information. So you may spend, maybe 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes editing, making a couple of changes here and there. For example, if you wanted to change something, I could say, hey, Copilot, take this bit here and I can highlight it, take that and turn it into bullet points, or make it more concise, and Copilot can rewrite that part of the document. So I can be using Copilot to doing my edits as I go through. But the time saving is absolutely huge. Like I said, sometimes, especially with projects like this, getting started is the hardest part. How many of you have sat there with just a wicked case of writer's block? You just sat there in front of a blank screen waiting for inspiration to strike. One of the great things about Copilot is it skips the procrastination part and skips to the bit where you're already now just doing the edits and changing things. So the benefits of this could be huge. So with Word, we are already 1 hour ahead in our day. But let's say our boss suddenly sticks his head round the door and says, "Oh, have you done that proposal?" "Yeah, we've done it." And he goes, "Okay, well, actually, I want you to turn it into a PowerPoint because the client is coming into the office tomorrow." And you're like, "Oh, brilliant. PowerPoint now." So that doesn't have to be something that's scary either. I don't know how many of you here utilize PowerPoint on the regular. I am one of those people, and I can tell you that PowerPoint can be a bit of a pain to use. As someone who has kind of built a living around making PowerPoints, I can tell you that PowerPoint can sometimes be quite difficult because I'll tell you the difficulty with PowerPoint. It's not the slide stuff. It's building the narrative. It's getting the story correct. That is always one of the hardest bits I find of building PowerPoint presentations. So let's say that I've now got to build a PowerPoint. So I can ask Copilot to create a PowerPoint presentation. Oh, whoops. I can ask Copilot to create a PowerPoint presentation based on that proposal document that we made in the previous slide. So there's the proposal document, and I can ask Copilot to transform this into a PowerPoint. I can give Copilot some additional information around the narrative, around why we're doing this presentation, any additional information I want to go in there. I can ask Copilot to also add speaker notes and other useful information. I can ask it to add relevant imagery as well. So again, I don't have a completely blank slide, and it does its best to try and figure things out. For example, if there's a slide around sustainability, it will add a nice picture of leaves, that sort of thing. But again, I've now got my slide structure. Now, again, it's not perfect. 30 seconds of work, what would have been maybe an hour's worth of PowerPoint is now transformed into 30 seconds. But again, I need to spend some time doing some edits and some tweaks, just getting it to where it needs to be. But again, we're now looking at a collective of 3 hours worth of work. The proposal, the PowerPoint, 3 hours worth of work done in maybe a total of maybe 45 minutes of editing and tweaking time. That is a significant time saving. And again, I want you to think about different people in your company. Think about people that need to maybe create PowerPoints regularly, maybe people in sales, maybe people in marketing. How much time, effort, and energy could this save in your organization? Now, I'm not sure how many people in here are wizards of the dark arts of Excel. If you know all of these secret magic bubbling formulas that you need to know in order to make Excel actually do something. I'm not one of those people. Even though I used to work for Microsoft for doing this. I actually used to be a Microsoft employee. And I'm ashamed to say that in my time, I never really became an expert in Excel. I am average, mediocre at best when it comes to Excel. And, some of you might be in the same boat as me, that when you're presented with a massive Excel document, unless you know the tools to unlock the story that document is trying to tell you, then it's incredibly frustrating. Imagine if you could go into Excel and you could simply go onto a spreadsheet and you can say to Copilot, right, Copilot, analyze this spreadsheet and give me 3 key trends. And it can do it. It can analyze all of the data and give you information. You could even ask it, questions about the data. You can get it to do things. Hey, Copilot, take all of this information and transform it into graphs or charts or visualize it for me. Hey, Copilot, take this data, add a new column and calculate the return on investment for each of these customers. And it will do that. You now no longer need to know the formulas to do some very complex stuff in Excel. You just need to use your words. All you need to know is what you want to see. And that is absolutely incredible. This is game changing because Excel is always one of those, probably the most complex application in the M365 stack. And it's pretty much the one that, most people struggle with. And, there's one person in the office. We all know that person who is the Excel wizard in our business. They are the one that we go to when we can't find the right YouTube tutorial to tell us what we needed to do. So imagine how much more effective your organization could be if you were able to do more simple and to a certain extent more complex things than you could ever do in Excel, because you can now use your words. And again, I think this is a great leveler for Excel, because I find that with Excel within an organization, you've got people that aren't very good and then people that are really good. There's very few people that kind of sit in between. This brings everyone up to a really good baseline of being able to be more effective. Now, does this get rid of the people that we need, data analysts and stuff like that? No. Data analysts need to do a lot more complex stuff than just analyzing this quarter's business results. They need time to be able to work on much more complex projects. This just makes them more efficient. The stuff that they can do quicker now in Excel without having to type out long complex formulas. And also, think of the people in your business, people that work in maybe the finance department, for example. What could they use Excel for? So if you have a finance department, are these tools here that could help them understand business trends, information, understand financial situations quicker and easier? Well, there's only one way to find out. Speak to Resolve and look at getting a license. Then we have Copilot in Outlook. So here we go. Here's one that, we all use Outlook. And there's a couple of cool things in here that you can do. The first one is, being able to organize things. Copilot can do a great job of organizing our inbox. We're coming up to Christmas. Who could believe that? It's nearly... Well, we're on the 20th now, so we are nearly a month away from Christmas. So, they're already selling mince pies. In fact, they were doing that back in October. What am I talking about? But a lot of us are going to be taking leave over the festive period, which means a lot of us are going to be putting our out of offices on, and some of us are going to be returning, either early or kind of mid-January if you've got holiday that you're going to carry over. The point is that when you take time off, you inevitably come back to quite a swollen inbox. In fact, I've seen some people actually, when they go away on annual leave, they take their laptops or they take their work phones with them. I know, the monsters, they deserve time off, but they bring that stuff with them anyway because they cannot be away from it. Some of us, when we have annual leave, we buckle on the last day. You know what I mean? The Sunday night before you go back to work, you can't take it anymore. You need to go on and get a head start on those emails before Monday morning. Well, Copilot can actually help with this. The fact that you can utilize Copilot to organize your inbox. On the first day back, you can come back and you can ask Copilot to organize and filter your inbox by new customers, for example, or people that want to spend money with me. Hey, Copilot, I work in customer service. Filter my inbox and show me the angriest people first. So again, allow me to focus my efforts on where they need to be. Has anyone ever been in this situation where somebody has added you to an email thread that started 2 weeks ago? You've just been added in and now they want your opinion on what's been going on, meaning you now need to read back through 2 weeks of emails, half of which have nothing to do with you. Frustrating situation, I know, but you can get Copilot to summarize this. Rather than you reading back through 2 weeks worth of emails, you can get Copilot to give you a summary of that email thread, allowing you to get up to speed quickly and give a coherent response. You can also use Copilot in Outlook for replying to your emails. And I'll just disappoint everyone right now by saying this doesn't work with your out of office or auto replies or anything like that. Copilot's not going to pretend to be you. But you can use Copilot to draft responses to emails. Sometimes someone might send you a message, an email, and you want to reply, but you don't have time. How many of you you forget to get back to someone because you see the email and you think, oh, I don't have time for this right now, and then suddenly you forget all about it? Well, you can use Copilot for this. Someone messages you, you think, oh, I don't really have the time. You can ask Copilot to draft a response. Give Copilot the basics. Draft a response to Jude. Tell him I'd love to attend his event, but I'm not available on Mondays and Tuesdays. That's it. Copilot will draft a nice response, which is polite and everything else, which you can then send. You just need to give it the bare bones of what you want to say. Copilot will fill in the gaps. So absolutely incredible stuff. One other thing that Copilot can do for you as well is around meetings. Now, we've all been in situations where somebody who's invited you to a Teams meeting on a certain time, certain date, and then someone else invites you to another Teams meeting, same time, same date. Now, you can't go to both, obviously. But what if you could? This feature is called Follow a Meeting. Now, with Follow a Meeting, what this effectively means is I can go to one meeting and I can send Copilot to the other meeting on my behalf. Now, once again, Copilot's not going to go there and pretend to be you and give insightful opinions about things. Copilot is just going to very quietly sit in the other meeting and it's going to take notes. Effectively, it's going to record the transcript. Once the meeting is finished, I can go back to Copilot and say, hey, Copilot, what happened in that meeting that I couldn't attend? And Copilot can give me all the information. I can actually question Copilot. I say, hey, Copilot, who was in that meeting? And go, oh, well, Jude was there and Hannah was there. I go, fantastic. What did Jude have to say? Well, Jude had some things he wanted to talk about this. Okay, brilliant. Did Hannah set any actions for me? Yes, Hannah said, can you do this? And she needs you to do that. Okay, brilliant. When does Hannah want this done by? She said she wants it done by the end of the month. Okay, brilliant. So imagine that you're able to actually ask questions about a meeting that you weren't at. It's a little bit like having a personal assistant that attended the meeting and then you're having a sit down with your PA afterwards and talking about what went down. That is effectively what Copilot can do for you. And that kind of goes into Copilot in Teams as well. You know, Teams is one of those applications that many of us use all day, every day anyway. Copilot in Teams is an incredibly powerful tool, not only for the ability for Copilot to record meetings. Recording a meeting is absolutely wonderful as well, because for me, I attend a lot of virtual meetings, as I'm sure all of us do nowadays. Now, once again, there's been like a lot of confessions from me today, from Excel to the next thing. This is like almost feel like this is an intervention rather than a training session. But here we go. I'm not very good at handwriting. I'm slow and sometimes, you know, I write in hieroglyphics. It effectively looks like, you know, when I'm writing fast. Even a doctor would look at that and go, hey, what's this? But that's a problem, you know, because I'm slow at writing. I get stuck on long words. This makes it very difficult for me when I'm in a Teams meeting to take effective notes. Now, I know some of you are probably sat on this session right now, you know, taking diligent notes, and good for you if you are. But, you know, some of us, you know, we struggle to, you know, keep up. And I always find that if I'm writing notes, I'm not giving my full attention to the person I'm speaking to. Now, this isn't good for somebody who works in sales, you know, like me. This isn't good for somebody who works in HR. Imagine, you know, going to a job interview and you're having a job interview with the top of someone's head because they're just writing notes the whole time. You know, you miss that kind of engagement. I would rather give my full attention to the person I'm speaking to. And that's why I love Copilot in Teams, because I can turn on Copilot and then through the meeting, 100% of my focus and attention is on the person that I'm speaking to. And then when the meeting comes to an end, I can go back to Copilot and I can ask Copilot for a summary of the meeting. If I forget something, oh, how many times have you done this? Somebody has said something in a meeting and they've said it and you've instantly forgotten it. You thought to yourself, I'll remember that. You never do. You forget it straight away. Imagine if you could, rather than having to go back to that person, go, yes, sorry, can I just ask again, how many was it you said about this? You can go back to Copilot. Hey, how many licenses did Jude say he wanted to buy this month? And Copilot will be able to go back to the meeting and find that information. You know, for me, that's actually a bit of a godsend in that respect. But we can also use Copilot within meetings as well. It's not just about catching up on meetings that have already happened. I can use it in a meeting that I'm actually in. So for example, let's say that I've got a meeting going on with these lovely folk right here. Let's say that I've just suggested something. Maybe I've suggested maybe a theme for this year's office party or whatever it might be. And everyone's answered, but I'm still unsure on their thoughts or their feelings about this. So I could say to Copilot, hey, how did the group feel about that idea that I just suggested? And Copilot, knowing what it knows about language and sentence structure and context, will be able to discern a sentiment. So say, well, the group seems to have mixed feelings about the idea that you just had. On one hand, they like this. On the other hand, they didn't seem so keen on this. So I can actually ask them just make sure you put this into the Copilot box and not into the chat box. That's my only word of caution right there for you. So there are some incredible things, and Copilot in Teams, for me, I would say for somebody that lives and breathes this stuff, what is the thing that I use the most out of all the stuff we've talked about? And it's probably Copilot in Teams. This is like every day for me. Every time I do a meeting, I turn on Copilot, because that way I've got the meeting, I've got it recorded. If I need to then email back the person, it's normally good practice in business. Once you've had a meeting with, especially with a new customer, you normally email them after and say, hey, great to catch up with you. Here's what we spoke about. Was there anything we missed? Look forward to catching up with you soon. That would normally be about, 10 minutes worth of email, 15 minutes worth of email, referencing my handwritten notes or deciphering my handwritten notes. But now with Copilot, I can ask it to give me a short summary, and I can just copy and paste it into an email to my customer and say, hey, great to catch up with you. Copy, paste. Here's what we discussed. Is there anything we missed? Looking forward to catching up with you soon. And there we go. Literally 30 seconds worth of work. What would have been, maybe 5-10 minutes crafting the perfect email. I can do that very quickly now. So really cool stuff. And there's, some really basic things you can do to get started with Copilot. Here's just some simple prompts that you can do just to get started using Copilot. Summarizing a document, revise this content, help me write, recap this meeting. These are just some of the basic things just to get started. And when it comes with considerations, here are some things that you as an organization do need to think about in terms of your goals for utilizing AI. What are your pain points that AI can address? That's definitely worth thinking about. Are there certain elements of your organization where some things are overrunning because it's taking too long, where projects are maybe bottlenecking? Because again, like maybe there's 1 or 2 people that have got a lot of work to do. Have a think about these things, where Copilot could actually deliver, tangible and impactful results for your business. What are your current capabilities? Maybe some of you are already using ChatGPT, so you've already got a good understanding of creating prompts and everything else. Here's the big one though. Does your organization have a data strategy in place? And that was that thing I was talking about earlier, making sure that things like your SharePoint environment, identities, access, governance, policies, all of that is addressed. And again, that is where Resolve can help. Resolve can look at your organization. They can tell you where you're strong, tell you where you're weak, tell you the things that you need to do in order to make sure your Copilot deployment is as secure as it can be. And for SMB customers, when it comes to licenses, these are the, ignore the pricing because that's all changed a little bit. But the one that I do want to mention is this. Business Premium. That absolutely is the license you want to be on. You want to be on M365 Business Premium because that is the one that gives you pretty much all the comprehensive security controls that you need. Oops, there's questions coming through. I'll have a look at that in a second. So these are the main things around, making sure that you are ready for M365 Copilot, having that optimal licensing. Like I said, Copilot is absolutely dependent on security that is already in place. And M365 Business Premium gives you pretty much all the security you would need for a successful and secure Copilot deployment. If that does involve looking at migrations as well, speak to the team at Resolve. One other important thing to mention is that Copilot can only see information that is in the cloud, so within OneDrive or SharePoint. natively out of the box, Copilot cannot see data that is on-prem. So any of you that have got on-premises servers, the Z drive, that contains corporate data, that stuff does need to be moved. But once again, that is stuff that Resolve can help with. When it comes to things such as data migrations, site migrations, all of that is in hand. They've done this many times. They know exactly what they're doing, so they can help your organization. So to wrap up, the 3 steps for getting ready for Copilot. Number 1, move to optimal licenses within the M365 suite. For our SMB customers, that would be M365 Business Premium. Implement a secure data strategy and securing identities and access. So again, making sure that our organizations are our data, identities, access, all of that is addressed. And again, the team at Resolve can help. And with that in mind, I will throw back over to Jude.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ed. That's fantastic. We've had loads of really good questions. I've done my best to hammer out the answers to those. Thank you so much for getting involved. That's really good. I think just a couple of things to say. So obviously, Ed's just alluded to what you need to do next, and I think I wanted to just emphasise two of those things and something else for you to think about. So when it comes to implementation of this this system, it's very different to anything else really that certainly Resolve as an IT and security provider have been involved with. 2 things. So Ed mentioned one, and that's getting the security in good order before you just begin to roll out licensing, or you can end up in some pretty bad situations. So that's not as daunting as it might sound. We can help you with that, and obviously just contact us in the usual ways if you want to discuss that. And the second thing, and I think this is more just something to think about, especially if you're responsible for implementing Copilot within the business. What we tend to see with this is if once you get everything ready, you purchase some licenses and you get those assigned. Generally speaking, we find that often there'll be a bit of interest, they will get used a little bit, and then the interest might drift off, and then suddenly you sat there with some fairly expensive licensing that isn't getting used. So there's some really good ways we've seen with organizations who have implemented this successfully. And that's anything ranging from sort of committees within the company or small groups who are sort of AI champions, right the way through to sort of mindset training. So things like, can AI do this job before you begin to just start the job? And this is really about habit changing, and actually changing working practices. So all of those kind of things, and when it comes down to the actual implementation and getting real success out of the implementation, more than happy to talk to you about that. And it might be that we run another session on that over the coming months. Or obviously, if you want to give us a call, I'm more than happy to speak to you. We've got consultants here who can talk to you about this kind of thing. So yeah, just those 2 things to throw out. That is essentially it. Once again, thanks so much for all the questions.
I've just got to, sorry, Jude, we do have just a couple of questions in there. Is it all right just to jump on some of those before we wrap up?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So a couple of things come through. So Nathan says Copilot does not rely on a single LLM. No, that is absolutely true. Microsoft does rely on a few. I've actually put, for anyone that's interested, I've actually put a list of the primary LLMs that Copilot does utilize. So there's lots of different ones on there, all with different specialities. So do have a look at that if you're interested. And Ian says, why Copilot? Are some of the other AI tools not better? ChatGPT, Gemini? Well, you're absolutely right. I'm not saying that, ChatGPT is bad. I use ChatGPT myself, and, it's a very good tool. The difference between things such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and the other AI tools that's out there is the integration with Microsoft technologies. That really is the difference. That is what makes Copilot unique. The fact that with M365 Copilot, the way it natively integrates into our M365 applications, or with different Copilots into, Power BI, Dynamics, it's built and designed to work within the application, within the service. So it is that kind of collaborative nature of the solution with the application that makes Copilot unique. Again, not taking anything away from ChatGPT, because there's a lot of similarities between ChatGPT and Copilot with OpenAI and the GPT models that it utilizes, but the execution is very different. So I'm not going to say that there are tools that are better, because all the AI tools have their own focus. For us, people who are working predominantly within the M365 stack, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, there isn't anything that is better for utilizing with those applications than Copilot, because that's what it was built for. And Claire, I've popped the 10 things back up on the screen for you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ed.
Sorry.
Excellent. So just in the interest of time, we're right on the minute, so it's almost like I've done this before. So thanks, Ed. As I say, if there's any questions or anything further you want to discuss, if you want to get in touch to talk about implementation, just give us a call, speak to the solutions team here at Resolve. You can email us at solutions@resolve.co.uk, or pick up the phone, give us a ring. We'd love to chat to you. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll no doubt speak to you soon.
Cool. Thanks everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.